Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today's topic is about the reproductive system of men and women. First, we're going to talk about the pathway that follows the sperm to the urethra. During ejaculation, sperm are expelled from the tail of the epididymis into the vas deferens. After that, sperm travels through the vas deferens, through up the spermatic cord into the pelvic cavity, over the ureter to the prostate behind the bladder. When it gets there, the vas deferens joins with the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct, which passes through the prostate and empties into the urethra. To understand this better, I'm going to describe the organs. The seminal vesicle. The seminal vesicle are two small glands that are in charge of store and produce the majority of the fluid that makes up semen. When ejaculation occurs, the fluid from the seminal vesicles is expelled into the ejaculatory duct, where it can then move on to mix with sperm and other reproductive fluids. Prostatic urethra. Part of the urethra that passes through the prostate, it is about 3 to 4 centimeters long and extends from the base of the bladder just below the pre-prostatic urethra to the membranous part of the urethra. Vas deferens. The vas deferens is a 18 inches long tube that ascends on the posterior border of each testis, penetrates the body wall through the inguinal canal, and enters the pelvic cavity. Once inside, each vas deferens loops over the urinary bladder and extends down toward the region of the urethra. The testicles. The testicles are in charge of making sperm and involved in producing a hormone called testosterone. This hormone is essential during male development and maturation for developing muscles, deepening the voice, and growing body hair. Ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct delivers sperm into the urethra, adding secretions and additives from the prostate necessary for sperm function, while providing an interface between the reproductive and urinary systems in men. Urethra. The urethra, when males reach the organs, it expels semen, and it also works to carry urine outside the body. Epididymis. Long coiled tube that stores sperm and transports it from the testes. Now I will explain the external genitalia of the male reproductive system and the structure and function of each organ. External urethral orifice. It is where urine exists and where the semen is ejected during ejaculation. Glands of penis, also known as the head of the penis. In this part we can find the opening of the urethra. For some males, it's the most sensitive part of the penis. Prepuce of penis is the anatomic covering of the glands. The prepuce is a specialized junctional mucocutaneous tissue that provides adequate skin and mucosa to cover the entire penis during erection. Scrotum. It hangs outside the body because it needs to maintain a slightly lower temperature than the rest of the body. This lower temperature helps to maintain sperm production. Scrotal tissues help protect the structures inside the testicles where sperm and important hormones are produced. Scrotal and perineal raphe. Subcutaneous fibrous plate extending from the penile frenulum along the penile shaft and scrotum and towards the anus. In mice, the urorectal septum of endodermal origin plays a role of zipper to close the bilateral genital folds. It's where nature zipped up the tissue that would have formed the labia majora if the fetus had been a girl. Anus is the digestive tract through which stool leaves the body. Moving on, I'm going to talk about the organs that contribute to the production of seminal fluid and describe their contribution to the production of seminal fluid. The prostate gland. It produces a fluid that nourishes and transports sperm. The seminal vesicles are two small glands that are in charge of store and produce the majority of the fluid that makes up semen. When ejaculation occurs, the fluid from the seminal vesicles is expelled into the ejaculatory duct, where it can then move on to mix sperm on other reproductive fluids. The bulbourethral glands. They produce a mucus-like fluid called pre-ejaculate, which is viscous, clear, and salty liquid that neutralizes any residual acidity in the urethra. Moving on to the next part, now I'm going to describe the hormonal regulation of the male reproductive system. We have three hormones involved. The first one is the follicle-stimulating hormone, produced by the pituitary gland. It stimulates the testicular growth and helps produce a protein that plays a vital role in male fertility by aiding in the creation of normal sperm cells and maintaining them until they are ready to be released. The second one is the luteinizing hormone produced by the anterior pituitary gland. Stimulates testosterone production by testicular Leydig cells by activating the LH receptor, a G protein-coupled receptor located in the Leydig cell plasma membranes. Last but not least is testosterone, produced in the testes. Testosterone develops male reproductive tissues such as testes and prostate, as well as promoting secondary sexual characteristics such as increased muscle and bone mass, and the growth of the body hair. The hormonal regulation of the male reproductive system works when the hypothalamus secretes GnRH that goes into the anterior pituitary gland, which produces follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which are secreted by a positive feedback. These hormones are necessary for the testes in order to facilitate spermatogenesis and act on Leydig cells. This process stimulates synthesis and secretion of testosterone. Testosterone goes to the anterior pituitary gland and hypothalamus through a negative feedback system. That's everything for the male reproductive system. Now we're going to talk about the female reproductive system.
An oocyte is produced in the ovary during female gametogenesis. The female germ cells produce a primordial germ cell, PGC, which then undergoes mitosis, forming oognia. During oogenesis, the oognia becomes primary oocytes. An oocyte is a form of genetic material that can be collected from cryoconservation. The fallopian tubes extend from the uterus to the ovaries, but they are not attached to the ovaries. Rather, they end in finger-like projections called fimbriae that, together with the ciliated lining of the oviducts, guides the egg into the oviduct and sweeps it towards the uterus. The fertilized egg then moves to the uterus, where it implants to the uterine lining. The fertilization of an egg by a sperm normally occurs in the fallopian tubes. The zygote, or fertilized egg, travels down into the uterus and becomes what's called a morolla. In the uterus, the morolla becomes a blastocyst and eventually bursts into the uterine lining in a process called implantation. The external female genitalia is mainly composed of the mons pubis, a rounded mound of fatty tissue that covers the pubic bone. During puberty, it becomes covered with hair. The labia majora, which is a relatively large fleshy folds of tissue that enclose and protect the other external genital organs. The labia majora contains sweat and sebaceous glands which produce lubricating secretions. The labia minora can be very small or up to 2 inches wide. The labia minora lie just inside the labia majora and surrounding the openings to the vagina or urethra. A rich supply of blood vessels gives the labia minora a pink color. The Bartholin glands, which are located beside the vaginal opening, secrete a thick fluid that supplies lubrication for intercourse. The clitoris is located between the labia minora and the upper end. It's a small protrusion that corresponds to the penis in the male. The clitoris is very sensitive to sexual stimulation and can become erect. The opening of the urethra, which carries urine from the bladder to the outside, is located above and in front of the vaginal opening. The opening of the vagina is called the introitus. The vaginal opening is the entryway for the penis during sexual intercourse and the exit for blood during menstruation and for the baby during birth. The ovaries are small, oval-shaped glands that are located on either side of the uterus. The ovaries produce eggs and hormones. The oviducts extend from the uterus to the ovaries, but they are not attached to the ovaries. Rather, they end in finger-like projections called fimbriae that, together with the ciliated lining of the oviducts, guides the egg into the oviduct and sweeps it towards the uterus. The uterus is a hollow, upside-down, pear-shaped organ that is the home to a developing fetus. The cervix is the lower part that opens into the vagina. The endometrium is where the embryo is embedded when it reaches the uterus in a process called implantation. The vagina is a long muscular tube that lies at a 45-degree angle to the lower back. It receives the penis during sexual intercourse and serves as both the birth canal and exit for the monthly menstrual flow. The hormonal regulation of the female reproductive system consists of the gonadotropin-releasing hormone, GnRH, that is produced by a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. When it circulates into the blood, it causes the release of two important hormones from the pituitary gland in another specialized part of the brain. The follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, that is produced by the pituitary gland during the first half of the menstrual cycle. It stimulates development of the maturing ovarian follicle and controls ovum production in the female. The luteinizing hormone, LH, is also produced by the pituitary gland in the brain. It stimulates the ovaries to produce oestrogen and progesterone. It triggers ovulation, the release of a mature ovum from the ovary, and it promotes the development of the corpus luteum. The duration of a female reproductive cycle typically ranges from 24 to 34 days. The ovarian cycle includes a series of events that occur during and after the maturation of an oocyte. It's divided into three parts: the follicular phase, ovulation, and the luteal phase. During the follicular phase, FSH stimulates the development of a follicle in one of the ovaries. As the follicle matures, genesis is initiated and continues, and the epithelial cells of the follicle multiply and secrete the female sex hormones, mainly estrogen. As estrogen levels rise, negative feedback stops the secretion of FSH so that the follicular phase comes to an end. In ovulation, the estrogen spike causes the secretion of GnRH from the hypothalamus, which in turn causes a surge of LH from the anterior pituitary gland, resulting in ovulation on about day 14 of a 28-day cycle. Ovulation is the release of the secondary oocyte from the follicle and into the oviduct. After ovulation, the luteal phase begins. During the luteal phase, LH promotes the development of the corpus luteum, which consists of the follicle cells left behind after ovulation. The corpus luteum secretes female sex hormones, mainly progesterone. The uterine cycle can be divided into menstruation, the proliferative phase, and the secretory phase. Menstruation lasts from day 1 to about day 5 and consists of the breakdown of the endometrium with blood passing out the vagina. The proliferative phase is from day 6 to day 13 and consists of the buildup of the endometrium, which becomes more vascular and glandular. The proliferative phase is caused by the increased production of estrogen by the new developing follicle. The secretory phase is from day 15 to 28 and consists of the endometrium doubling or tripling in thickness and uterine glands producing a thick mucus secretion. The secretion of progesterone by the corpus luteum causes the secretion phase. The endometrium is now prepared to receive a developing embryo. If fertilization and implantation do not occur, the corpus luteum will degenerate, resulting in lower levels of the sex hormone that will lead to the breakdown of the endometrium and menstruation. The female hormones estrogen and progesterone produced by the ovaries during the ovarian cycle can affect the endometrium, causing the uterus to undergo the cycling changes known as the uterine cycle.
Now we're going to explain how to use the different methods of birth control and how they work to prevent pregnancy. Female and male sterilization is the birth control that prevents pregnancy for the rest of your life through surgery or medical procedure. Tubal ligation is one of them. The fallopian tubes are cut, tied, or blocked to permanently prevent pregnancy. Tubal ligation prevents an egg from traveling from the ovaries through the fallopian tubes and blocks sperm from traveling up the fallopian tubes to the egg. Long-acting reversible contraceptives or LARC methods. Copper use stops the egg from attaching to the wall of the uterus and prevents pregnancy. Hormonal use releases progesterone hormone to prevent pregnancy. These progesterone hormones are similar to those naturally released by the ovaries. These hormones thicken the mucus of the entrance of the womb, making it difficult for the sperm pass and reach the egg. Implant. The progesterone hormone this implant contains is slowly released into the bloodstream to avoid pregnancy. Progesterone thickens the mucus on your cervix and stops sperms from reaching to the egg. As sperms can't meet the egg, pregnancy can't happen. This hormone also makes the lining of your uterus or womb thinner. Shot. The shot avoids pregnancy by preventing the ovaries from releasing an egg each month. When the egg is not produced, you can't get pregnant. It also makes cervical mucus thicker, which make it very difficult for sperms to pass and meet eggs. The patch. It releases a daily dose of hormones through the skin into the bloodstream to prevent pregnancy. It contains the same hormones as the combined pill, estrogen and progesterone, and works in the same way by preventing the release of an egg each month. Short-acting hormonal methods. Birth control pills. By stopping or reducing ovulation, thicken cervical mucus to keep sperm from entering the uterus, thinning the lining of the uterus so that a fertilized egg is less likely to attach. Vaginal ring. The hormones suppress ovulation by keeping your ovaries from releasing an egg. The hormones in a vaginal ring also thicken cervical mucus to keep sperm from reaching an egg. Barrier methods of one use. Condoms. They stop sperm from meeting an egg. Diaphragm. It creates a barrier between a woman's uterus and a man's sperm. Sponge. It keeps the sperm and eggs apart. Cervical cap. Inserted into the vagina with spermicide before sex to prevent pregnancy. There is also the natural rhythm methods. It's a form of natural family planning. It can be done by tracking a woman's menstrual cycle, monitoring basal body temperature, and watching for changes for cervical mucus. This method is about 76% effective at preventing pregnancy. The best way to actually prevent STDs is to abstain from all types of sexual contact. If that is not an option and the person is going to be sexually active, then external and internal condoms are the only forms of birth control that also protect against sexually transmitted diseases. Well, that was all for today. Thank you for watching.